Sup YouTube, Jesus Freak PC here. And shalom YouTube. Now if you look at the introduction, the top line says, teaching myself Hebrew. And that's exactly what I want to do. I'm going to give you a tip just today in the first lesson that you're going to be glad you came. Alrighty then. Taking a blank piece of paper here, I just want to show you something real quick. Isn't that terrible? I just wrote the word greetings if you can't read my handwriting, and that's so sloppy. I've got terrible handwriting. Now I might say to myself, well, you know what, I think I'm just going to print it. A little easier to read. It's easy to read, but it's not much better, is it? Terrible handwriting. Now just like with Hebrew, you can write Hebrew and you can print Hebrew. If you take your time and say, okay, I'm going to make a little bit better letters. Take my time. You can make it look a little bit better. Nothing neat about that though, is there? Well, you know, the same kind of principle is sort of like when you're writing and printing Hebrew. Now, I don't know how to write Hebrew, so I might teach myself that too. But right now I do have some, a little bit of practice with writing or printing Hebrew. Now, if I print the word, now you know what, I need to turn it a little bit because when I do it straight up, my hand does cover it completely. So remember, right to left. I'm doing it sloppy, just like if I was, just like this was sloppy. Because that's how it is with Hebrew. Even though the letters look cool, doesn't that look awesome? Not my writing or my printing of it, but the letters themselves are pretty cool. Now, just a basic rundown of this word shalom is this is your shin letter. And if you put the point here, it's shin. If you put the point here, it's sin. In other words, don't get confused with that. That just means it has the SH sound or it has the S sound. This gives it the ah sound. And this is your L, or your lamed character. This is your vav, with a point on top of it makes it the O sound. And this is your mem, or your M. Notice shalom right there, and it's sloppy. This is like printing right here, just really sloppy handwriting. But still you do see Hebrew there. Now here's the trick, here's the tip. You're going to learn, and you don't even got to do these uniform. Do you see how it's sort of like, you know, you can make them a little smaller, a little tighter. And you say, what are you doing? What is that? Well, if you turn it kitty corner, it looks like an S, doesn't it? This trick right here will help you to form your Hebrew letters with style, with pizzazz. I'm going to show you in a minute. But first you want to learn this. This is the only thing you want to learn today. Now watch this tip. If I take this calligraphy pen and I do the same motion, bring it down. Do you see that? Now I'm going to make it a little bigger so you can really see it. Bring it down skinny, go over and then come back down. Do you see that? That's just a little exaggerated because really if you're doing a Hebrew letter you might just go like this and it just might be the top start of a letter. But if you learn this motion, I'll do it big for you again. See? You can do it like that. You could just bring it down over to the right and like that. You can just, but the big thing that you have to learn is bring it down skinny with the calligraphy pen, bring it over fat, and bring it down skinny again. And you get a really nice form there. And you say, well, what's so big about this? Well, this is a great tip. And for those that know Hebrew, how to write it already, if you incorporate this into your writing, I am sure that you're going to be thrilled with this. If you're just starting out, you're going to start out with a tip that is so powerful, people are going to look at your Hebrew lettering and say, wow, how did you learn how to write like that? So let's just get this out of the way and give you a demonstration. Now, doesn't that look nice? That's all I'm saying. Let's close up a little bit there. Gets a little blurry with my camera if I get too close, though. Doesn't that look nice, though? Now look at, here's your point. Now look at, here's that motion right at the top there, nice and thick with a thin line. There's that motion again, right there, with a thin line. There, thin line. Fat line on the bottom. There's the motion there at the top of the lamed. Thin line, come on over. Actually, when you learn that motion, you almost learn how to make the letter L. And here with your vav, you got that motion. And even at the top of the mem, you have that motion. And it makes this look excellent. So writing with a calligraphic pen makes it look awesome. And using that tip for your letters is going to help you make awesome, awesome, awesome Hebrew lettering. Sorry if that was blurry too. I'll have to work on this. So your Hebrew printing can look like this, or it can look like that. I choose this. This is awesome. People will look at this and say, and by the way, that is the word shalom. So you did learn how to write your first word. But we just didn't concentrate on that. We're concentrating on, I want you to practice this. If you're going to learn to write Hebrew lettering with style and pizzazz, and get compliments for it, learn this little trick here. Okay, I hope that has been a blessing to you. I got lots of stuff I want to share with you. Come on back, and God bless you in Jesus' name. Take it easy, YouTube. Well, look what I've done with my notebook. I've designed a title page. You can do the same, and you don't have to make it exactly the same. Have fun with it. Do what you want. It's the Hebrew alphabet, or in Hebrew, ivrit. Now, the aleph bet. Some people say bait. I say bet. The aleph bet. Now look over here. That's my old reference card that I made well over 10 years ago. I'm going to keep that. I taped it in there. I'm not going to throw it away. I'm going to keep that for sentimental reasons, as you might have guessed. Now I put a couple facts down for you concerning the aleph bet. There's 22 consonants. There's more when you add final forms, and when you put dots in them and vowel points and stuff, they have different sounds. So, but there's actually 22 consonants in the alphabet. There's 5 vowel sounds, but again, you know, these are main vowel sounds. There's actually slightly different variances, but you don't really have to concern yourself with them. If you can learn 5 vowel sounds, you can learn how to speak Hebrew. Now notice I also put see Psalm 119 KJV, or King James Version. Don't worry, no religion. I want to show you something that's very neat. Look at this. If you own a King James Version of the Bible, you might have in your possession a copy of the Hebrew alphabet. Look at this. There's the letters. There's the name of the letter, followed by 8 verses of Scripture, and another letter, so on and so forth. They actually say if you meditate the 8 verses of Scripture, it'll give you a deep revelation of the actual meaning of the letter. I haven't had that happen to me, unfortunately. Okay? Or needless to say. Now look at this. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav. You can go through all 22 letters in this 119 Psalm. I just thought you might want to know that you've got a copy of your own Hebrew alphabet, or alphabet, in your possession if you own a King James Version of the Bible. Unfortunately, some of them don't have it, even if it's King James Version. You'll just have to look. Lucky for you, though, even if you don't have a King James Version of the Bible, or one that has it, we're going to have a notebook with everything included. That's right. In your notebook, we're going to put all the Hebrew alphabet. Every letter. Remember I said there's 22? There's 22 that you would see in the Bible there, but some of them have multiple forms when you add vowel points or final shapes of the letter. You don't have to worry about this. And don't let this scare you. It's very easy, especially when I show you how to master the most complicated letter to print in the whole alphabet, that is the aleph itself. That's the most complicated letter to draw or to print. I just want to show you, though, the meaning of a vowel point changing a letter. Watch this. Aleph. Bet is actually the second letter in the alpha or alphabet. But if you take that dot out, that vowel point out, it turns to V. So instead of bet with a B, it becomes vet with a V. Isn't that interesting? And like I said before, some of them change shapes or change their form at the end of a word. Okay? We'll go over that. Don't be afraid of this. Once you get past this one, learning how to write these will be a breeze. Especially if you learn that tip that I showed you. And what's this? Shalom, YouTube. Remember this from the introduction video? I didn't want you to try to learn how to write that yet. Do you remember? Because you haven't learned how to form shin, lamed, vav, or the final for mem. I wanted you to learn how to do this. I showed you a tip on that. What you didn't know is you're actually learning a Hebrew letter just from doing that. But this, that shape right there is going to help you form a lot of Hebrew letters. Just for beginning letters, sometimes you'll bring that little thing down there and just bring it straight across. But it's going to give you a lot of help in forming a lot of letters. Beginning with Aleph. That's what we're going to learn right now. And hopefully everything else is going to go a lot faster, but you have to take your time and learn how to do the Aleph, okay? First of all, remember, right to left, Aleph is not an X. Okay? Aleph is also not a square X. Do you get my point? Aleph is more vertical than a square X. And it also doesn't cross in the middle like an X would. So basically a stick figure do you see that? That's a basic stick figure of Aleph. Now I know that doesn't look very good. Of course it doesn't. It's a stick figure. Look, I'm going to do it one more time for you. One leg, another leg that comes down, move up from center, and basically now we've just added something. You come up from center, and as you're coming down, instead of making a straight leg like that, you can make a little bit of a dog leg and come down and put a little foot on it. What you've just learned is just some basic structuring of the letter Aleph. The problem is, there's more to it than that. First of all, we want to have this little motion going, right? Just that little part right there. To start off your leg going down. We want to make sure that we come down like this. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight though. We'll show you that in a minute. A lot of times we'll be off center and I'm starting too high here, but you still want to move it up before you start the next part down. You got a little bit over, come down, and then over to the left. Oh, is that really correct? Well, truthfully, sometimes you get a little sloppier here, but sometimes the dog leg goes to the right. Isn't that something? This is one of the few times with Hebrew lettering, though, if you go to the right with the little dog leg, or if you go to the, if you go to the left or you go to the right, it doesn't matter. You've got a little freedom with this letter, okay? Now, let's try to learn it. This, with a pen, stick figure, I don't like it. I can't, it doesn't look good, whatever. Let's get the calligraphic pen going, okay? And I'll show you 4 different ways to do it. You can take your pick or you can go research it for yourself on the internet. Try Wikipedia. If you really want to learn about letters, like the Aleph letter is a silent letter and has no sound whatsoever unless you give it a vowel point or if it's followed or preceded by, yeah, I'll get to that. But if you want to read pages and pages, go to Wikipedia or something. You'll find all kinds of stuff. You'll also find this. You can make it like straight over with a little like that. Come down. Come with a little dog leg right at the top there. Bring it down again with another little dog leg there. Bring it up from center. Bring it over. Down fat with another little dog leg. Right there you just learned a nice Hebrew letter. Now another. Take that little trick I showed you. Like that. You can see that, right? See, it's not so straight across, it's more of an angle. Then you bring your little skinny stem down, put your little dog leg at the top, bring it over again, bring this over, and like I said, sometimes you might choose to go to the right. Not sometimes, pick your form, pick your way that you want to do it consistently. Now I pretty much try to make this look something like this. In other words, you got that, you bring it over. If you notice, it's almost the same thing right there, same angle and everything. Bring it up and over. Look at that. That's a nice one too. And I think when I was really doing it sloppy when I first learned, I went something like this, and I brought this, and I went just sort of like that. Kind of blobbed it on there and made it a little more blocky shape. I didn't really like that one, so I changed in the end. And you can go like that. Basically what I'm telling you is, now I pretty much settled for this. And you could settle for either one of these or look it up and find your own place for writing the letter Aleph, okay? When you decide what you want to try to go with, get yourself a piece of paper, put a bunch of them to the right hand side there, and start writing it across. Right to left, just start filling that page up. That's your practice sheet, right? Do it with lines so you try to start being uniform. Decide whether you're going to take the little foot to the right or the left. But pick something out and practice it, is what I'm telling you. Once you are finished practicing, okay, you'll take your notebook. And if you're afraid to write in your notebook at first, you can do it real lightly with a pencil and then go over it. Put the letter Aleph, the way that you learned how to write it. Write the word Aleph right behind it, or right underneath it, and you'll have the first letter in your Aleph Bet in your notebook. Okay? And we're going to do that until your notebook is full. And like I said, we're going to go over this stuff a lot faster. Once you master this one, you can go on a lot faster with the rest of these, and we'll start having some fun, okay? Well, teaching myself Hebrew, which is what you're trying to do for yourself too. Now, I'd like to go over our notebook and show you how to put all the letters of the Hebrew alphabet into your notebook. Let us begin. Okay, here's your Aleph. Remember how to do that. You bring it down, over, and down. See that? Bring it down, skinny, down, over, little hitch at the bottom there, skinny, down, and over again. There is your Aleph, or a silent letter, until you give it a vowel point or something. Okay? Now, your next letter is Bet. Did you see that? You take that little hitch at the top, bring it over, and then kind of, don't make a square, but make a little curve. That should have been skinny there because I just went over it twice. Then put the fat part of the pen and just drag it over and go past it just a little bit there. Now, in the first letter, Bet, some people say bait, I know. I learned it Bet, B-E-T. Some people say B-A-Y-T. But mostly what you need to concern yourself with, it is the letter B. You see that? Now, it has two forms. So if you were reciting the alphabet, it would be Aleph, Bet, Gimel. But if you don't want to pass it out, you know what I mean? You don't want to pass it up. You want to say Aleph, Bet, and now here, remember the little part at the top here, bring it over, curve down, make it a little skinnier on the way down, nice wide foot that goes past it just a little bit. But here, when you start, it's just a little past the end at the top, but no dot. Do you see that? Now you've just made two, so you've got Aleph, Bet, Vet, because this is the letter V, as veteran. Okay? There you have it. All right. So you got Aleph, Bet, Vet, and your next one is Gimel, or Gimel, the letter G. That little turn at the top there, like I always showed you. come over to the right, bring it down skinny, and right about at the bottom you kind of dogleg it to the right there. And then here you bring it skinny again with a fat foot to the left. That's your gimel. Little curve at the top, like that little tip. You're always, do you see now why I wanted you to learn that tip? Because it helps you start the formation, and in the middle of all your letters, pretty much, you're going to use that. This is gimel, or the letter G. Always a G, never, it's like always G as in green, but never gypsy. Never the G like gypsy. Do you get the point? It's a hard G. Aleph, bet, vet, gimel. Your next letter is dalet, or D. That little turn at the top, straight over. Pay attention now, pay attention. Notice when I stop my pen here, I'm going to actually bring it back before I come down. This is not that kind of curve at the top. This is very important because there's another letter that is a curve right here, and you're going to get them confused if you don't do this. So bring it down just a little bit there, bring it over to here, then come back, bring that little skinny, and then a little fatter on the way down, and that little skinny right there. Do you see that? Do you see that little bit, how it goes to the right? That's very important. But that is dalet, or you don't want to learn any of the words? Fine. D. Okay? D is in dog. Let's go. Your next letter is he, or some people say hey, or the letter H. The little curvy part, bring it over to the right, bring it back just a little bit, and then that little part at the bottom. Now, this motion right here where you bring it down, fat, you know, little skinny jog to the left, down fat, a little skinny jog to the left again. You're going to do the same thing, only don't start it up here. Another letter does that. Do you see? You got to pay attention. So you would start it like right here, little dog leg there, down, and another one. Do you see that? See that gap right there? That's very important. And that is not he, but I'll put it in parentheses, he, or hey. It's actually maybe correctly spelled H-E-I or H-A-Y. But mostly what you want to remember is, this is the letter H. He. Okay, so you got Aleph, Bet, Vet, Gimel, Dalet, He. Your next letter is Vav. That little come down over to the right, just a little bit curved down in that little part there. That is actually a V. This is a V, right? The vet? Well, this is a V too, but this can act like a vowel a lot of times. Now watch. So this is Vav, V-A-V. Some people spell it V-A-U, but there's no U, it's Vav. Okay? It is the letter V. But you have to watch something here. This would be like V, and if you had a vowel sound or a kamats or something under it, we'll show you that later, it would be like va. You know what I mean? But sometimes this acts like a vowel itself. So come down, over a little. That should be a little fatter at the top, you know, like that. If you see a dot above this, that is the O sound. And sometimes, unfortunately, if there's a vowel before it with a sound, this might be vo, and it wouldn't just be O. But don't worry about that most of the time. You can just count on this is just the letter, or the sound O. Okay? If you see a vav, I'm not getting fat enough right there. It should be like a fatness at the top of this. Do you see that? And actually a little skinnier. I got too fat there too. Mostly though, if you see a dot in the middle of this, this is the oo sound. Like spook, ghost. You know what I mean? Ooh. So you got vav, and it's the letter V. But if you see a dot above it, it's O. And if you see a dot in the middle, it's the oo sound. Aleph, Bet, Vet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav. Now, Zayin. You notice you've got that motion where you come down, over, and rounded down for the Vav. But let me tell you something. Much different with the next letter, zayin or zion. This one, you actually come down a little bit like that and go over to the right, but come back. So you see the difference there, right? This one comes down, over, and curves down. But this one actually is sort of like the dalet. You go past and come back before you come down. So you got that square. Do you see? Therefore, you can see there's a definite difference between these two letters. Easy to spot, too, when you learn how to write it correctly. This is zayin, or some people pronounce it Zion. But basically, it's the letter Z. However you want to put that in your notebook, that's fine. No problems whatsoever. Now, if you notice the dalet, this is going to be like the start of the D, only we're going to make the letter chet. Now, that's not a K, mind you. It's chet. It's sort of like put your tongue back in the roof of your mouth and act like you're going to make a K, but instead of doing that, loosen it up and act like you're going to spit, like, you know what I'm saying? That's the only way to explain it. It's chet. Now, you write this, come down, over, just like that dalet, okay? The paper's moving a little bit on me. See, there's the dalet that's up here. So therefore, you've already learned how to begin this letter. But instead of making with the space for the he or the hey, you would start at the top and just duplicate that line. So make sure the pen's in the right position. So come down, over, and over again. Look at that. In other words, no space. Form it just like the dalet and add this leg right here, duplicate it. And you have the KH or chet sound. That's how you get that KH. It's not a clean K. Remember, just think about spitting. It's like, you know what I'm saying? Chet. Only you don't have to pronounce it so much. You don't have to get absurd with it, you know? Aleph, bet, vet, gimel, dalet, he, vav, zayin, chet. Here's another interesting letter that has a shape all its own. You start down from this line just a little bit. And you're going to come up skinny, curve it around like you're making a heart. Oh, that's a good way to describe that. Act like you're going to draw a heart. Only instead of coming to the middle with a point, just come down a little bit to the right. Bring it over fat. Do you see that? So you come up like a heart, skinny on the way down, fat on the way over. Bring it up skinny again. Okay? And just kind of curve it back over just like that. But instead of finishing there, that little tip I showed you, watch this. Look at that. You've just made a perfect tet. Some people spell it T-I-T-E-I-T, but it's tet, and you've just made the letter T. See how pretty that is? And I hope that's a good description. Act like you're going to draw a heart, bring it down, bring it over, bring it up just a little bit. You bring it over and just back a little bit. And then put that little trick I showed you, or tip, right at the top of that. And you've got a perfect tet. Now you're about to find something that I've wanted to show you for a long time. Well, this is only the third video. Do you remember that tip I showed you? I told you that you actually learned how to do a Hebrew letter. Well, you did. Watch this. Up at the top, bring it down, over, and go just like that. You just learned the yud. It's almost like the apostrophe in the word can't. Only instead of just making a little hook like that, you did that exactly how I showed you. Little fat, bring it over. This is the Y-U-D, yud sound. Right? Some people write it yod, like with the O, but it's more like yud. But not like ud. It's like yud. You get it? Yud. And this is the letter Y. And this is part 1 of the Hebrew Aleph Bet. Aleph, Bet, Vet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yud. This is part 2. Starting with the letter Kaf. Okay, turn it to the side. I try to keep my hand out of the way when I form these letters. Now, I'm getting tired of having to say come down a little. You know that, right? Bring it down a little bit skinny for most of these letters. Bring it over fat. Now, this one's going to make like a circle. And get to the end and go over again. That's actually it. That's kaf. K-A-F, kaf, or the letter K. Now, this letter has 3 forms. Don't get confused because, see, it's kaf with the dot in the middle. No, I didn't forget, but that's how you form it at first. Kaf, or make the same letter without the dot. And without the dot is the KH sound, as in chet. You know, like you're clearing your throat or getting ready to spit, you get the point. Only not, don't do it like that. Just a little bit, you know what I mean? Just a little bit. Instead of making a hard K, just loosen it up a little bit and go chaf. See? Without the dot, that's the sound it makes. And if it's at the end of a word, it has a final form, which is just bring that over. Instead of making a circle, go to the end and bring it back and go about a half times further down below the line. And that is the final kaf. Now, it's called the final kaf, but 99% of the time it's not going to have a dot. So it's going to have the ak sound or the cha sound. You know what I'm saying, right? Otherwise, if it had a dot at the end of a word, it would be the K sound. Don't get confused. Remember, it's barely ever going to have a dot at the end of a word. So you've got kaf with the dot. You've got chaf without the dot. And the same goes for the end of the word. That's your final kaf right there. So if you ever have to write the letter kaf at the end of the word, it's going to have this longer leg coming all the way down. All right? I know it's a little confusing, but don't get too confused, okay? Because you'll pick it up and it'll be easy. Now, when you make the lamed, picture making a little snake head. Now remember, see how this final went below the line? The lamed actually starts above the line. Just go a little bit above, and picture you're making a little snake head, or the yud. Remember the yud? Remember the little trick? Right there. Then bring it down skinny, across fat, and back towards the center. Did you see that? Now, this is not an extra letter. Let me grab a different piece of paper to give you a little better description, okay? Or a little drawing of it. You're making the yud at the top, only small. You're coming down and back a little bit. I actually come straight down a little bit too much, but back and skinny like that. Then you draw it fat to the right. Once you get so far to the right, you bring it down skinny and back towards a little past the center and end up just like that. That is actually just, that's why I said it's almost like you're making a snake. There's the snake head, there's the body, it comes over, and here would be the tail. But it has nothing to do with the snake, obviously, because lamed is actually the letter L. Okay? Plain and simple, it's the letter L. So let's get going with the letter M, or mem. Now this is a little tricky. It's the one letter that doesn't really use that trick at all, that little yud trick. You bring it down fat, like that, then a little skinny, and down again. Did you see that? So in other words, well, you could put that trick. You could put a little tail there like that, and bring it over fat, and then down and over. But basically that's your form. It's almost like a little bit off center or a little crooked vav, if you know what I'm saying. Now the mem, then you take it here, just join it and make that a little motion like this. Do you see that? See, you're coming up with a little curve. Then just a little bit of a, and when you get down and get a little skinny at the bottom and bring it to the left. Oops, the paper's moving on me. Do you see that? You don't connect it. Leave a gap there, like it's sort of like the heh, where it's got that gap. So did you see what you just did? You bring it a little, you can do that little skinny part. Bring it over a little fatter, see how it's over fat like that? And bring it down with that little bit right there. It's like a crooked, messed up vav, if you know what I mean. Then you bring it over with the motion like that. Just a little bit of a hook, and then bring it over fat. That's basically what you're doing. Remember, the bigger you make the letter, the harder it is to make it look good. Now this is your mem, or basically your M. Okay? Now, it has a final form too. So in the beginning of the word or the middle of the word, it's always going to look like this. But if it's at the end of the word, and this one doesn't change sounds or anything. It's not like the kaf and the kaf. This is mem, and it's always going to be an M. And it's just, instead of making this at the top like it is like that, you're just going to make sort of the letter dalet. Only instead of going back, it's going to be sort of the little roundness at the side. So watch this. Little yod motion there. Bring it over, right? Curve it down just gently. Bring it over fat. Squarely bring it up. And when you get about here, just kind of make it skinnier if you can, and just back it in there. So you basically have the little tail at the top and basically a square letter. This should be skinnier actually to make it look prettier. But fat at the bottom and right here. And you can see it's sort of a box-shaped letter. That's your mem. That's your M at the end of a word. It sounds the same, but it's written differently. Okay? I know now I'm starting to get on my nerves by saying, okay? I'll try to stop that. Now, M goes to nun, or N. It's almost like the English alphabet right there, isn't it? L-M-N. Isn't that something? Having nothing to do with English. You've got lamed, mem, nun. Nun is like making a vav and just bringing it down straight. You see that? But when you get to the bottom, bring a foot over. Bring a foot or a wide line over to the left a little bit. So did you see that? You got the vav formation at the top. Bring it down skinny and bring it fat over to the left. That's nun. That's your N. Okay? When I write this, that's not nun, it's nun. Almost like the oo sound, but nun. The N is the letter though. This also has a final at the end of a word. Very easy. Just take that little vav motion, or vav motion, even the N motion, but instead of bringing the foot over, you just keep on coming down and go half past, just like the kaf. Now, samak is next. And picture you're going to make that little motion here with a circle. Try to make the little skinnier and a little fatter where you need to. You'll see what I'm saying. Don't ever get confused. Just go with it, okay? Here's the motion. Here's the circle. See how you'll get a little skinnier? When you go across, you'll get fatter. And hopefully you'll get a little bit at the top. You bring it back and in skinnier. I did a poor job of making that skinny right there. But you get the point, right? It's like that little yod motion at the top. Bring it around, make a circle, bring it back. That is samak. Now that looks, oh, excuse me, I wrote it as a CH because some people do that a lot. But it's samak. It's actually the KH sound. Okay? Samak. Therefore, it is your letter S. Or a letter S, because there's another one that's coming up. Now we have a letter coming just like Aleph. It's a silent letter, and it has no sound unless you give it a vowel point or something. Or a kamas or something like that, okay? It's going to look like you're making a Y, the little lamed at the top. Bring it down like you're making a Y, but right about here, dog-leg it over. Now you're going to do the same thing right here. Bring it down and then back. Do you see that? That's your ayin. Or some people, let's write it. It's A-Y-I-N. Ayin. Or you might say it ayan. I say ayin. Okay? It is silent just like the letter aleph. Next we have the peh, which actually is sort of like bet and vet. Has two sounds, and it also has a final letter, so there's basically three. Oh yeah, goody you saying, right? This is actually one of your harder letters to make. It's sort of like learning the aleph. It's kind of hard, but not if you pay attention. Pay attention, you go like this with your little aleph, or excuse me, your little yud motion, the little tip. Bring it over and curve it down. Get to the bottom and bring it over fat. Now that wasn't that hard, because really that's sort of like bring it over and just curve it here. It's not like the dalet. Bring it down and over fat. Now I'm not paying very much attention to making it skinny on the way down to make it look pretty. Now you're going to come here like you're making a person's nose of a face. And you're going to start right here, bring it like that, and bring it over fat. Do you see that? It almost looks like you're drawing a face. And fortunately, this is the letter P. Some people say and write it P-A-P-E-I, or say it like pay. I learned it P. Okay? So what we've got here is we've got Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samak, Ayin, Pe. And then you've got Fe, or the F sound, because this is your P sound. Watch now, I didn't forget, when you add a dot. And the dot doesn't go up in the middle like it's an eyeball, like you're making a face. It goes right behind the line with a little gap in between. You see that, right? Now, that's your Pe. And your Fe, or Fe, Pei, Fe, is the same exact thing without the dot, obviously. So you got Pe and Fe, or the letter F. And just like when we learned Kaf, or Chaf, or Ach has a final, this one does too. And very significant that you learned not to bring it square, but with the curved back. So bring it here and curve it, and then bring it straight down. Do you see that? The other one, the Chaf, the final Kaf, was square at the top and down, and that's it. This one you're going to actually make with the little nose that I showed you. In other words, you're making the same thing, and instead of bringing the bottom line over, you're just bringing it straight down. That is your final pay. But it's really the same thing, because without a dot, 99% of the time there's going to be no dot, and it's always going to be an F at the end of the word. So just try to remember that. Very simple. If you just say, hey, if I ever see this final pay, it's always an F. Pretty much 99% of the time you'll be correct. Now, tsadi. Hard to say if you don't think about it correctly. It's like saying the word nuts. How you got a TS, nuts. Only instead of at the end of the word, you're starting a word. So it's sort of like instead of saying T, you're saying TS, you're going tsadi. Tsadi. So you start it with your tongue at the top of your mouth and then just loosen it up and say the S. Tsadi. Okay? There's that okay. Oh my gosh, come on. Now this is sort of a little motion here, like the yod, or the yud, excuse me, I said that wrong. Bring this over, nice and skinny. You see that. Now do it again. Now that was sloppy. That was very sloppy of me. TS is your sound. A-D-E-E. Some people spell it T-S-A-D-E-I. But it is your T-S sound. Tsadi. Tsadi has, that's so sloppy I don't like it. Let me draw it one more time. Let me attempt it one more time. Bring it over. See how you come over, then you bring it across, and you bring it like that. See, I like that a lot better. You gotta have a little bit more of a dog leg to the left before you come back to the right. So get rid of this one. And I'm not going to do it over. It's just a little practice. I have never been able to write this letter correctly and 100% the same way every time for years. I'm always trying to get it to look better. There's your tsadi. And tsadi has a final form just like the final pay. You're going to do the same thing with the little yud at the top. Bring it over. And instead of coming back, you're just going to bring it straight down. Do you see that? Very nice. And it's the same thing, and it's like saying nuts. It's going to be at the end of the word, isn't it? Tsadi. So, boys and girls, if you are going to recite what we learned today, you might not say the chaf, but I do. I like saying all of them, or most of them anyway. What you learned today, the sounds and stuff, and the letters you've learned today, or in this part, is kaf, chaf, lamed, mem, nun, samak, ayin, pe, fe, and tsadi. Sorry it took so long. Now, we left off on tsadi. So we're going to start right off with kof. Or actually, that's the way I learned it, but it's actually kuf. Kuf. And for forming this letter, you're going to make something that looks like the letter P, but it's not. And you're also not going to start at the top of the line like you normally do. You're going to bring it down just a little bit. Bring it over with that skinny portion of your pen and over again. See, there's that, always using that little tip. And it doesn't come up to the top because you have another part of the letter with the little dog leg there. Bring it over and make that circle. Oop, the paper moved on me. Make that circle and bring it back. Look at that. There's a little gap there. You didn't bring it over and touched it, and you didn't touch it here. Let me draw it bigger for you. Here's a little paper that I use to make things bigger, to make it easier for you to see. You're bringing that straight leg like this. See how big that is? And you're taking this part, that little skinny part, bring the circle. There it is. So it looks like a letter P, but it's basically fit in the line just like that. Hope that helps you form it a little better. Now this is kuf, although it would be spelled how? Kof, or basically with a Q. Q-U-F or K-U-F. And remember, this is not the K, but originates from the letter Q. Think of it like this. The word query, that sounds like K, but it's a Q, isn't it? That's exactly how this is. And it looks like the letter P, doesn't it? There you have it. Kuf. Now your next letter is resh. Now listen, it's not resh like in English. It's more guttural, or has an Israeli type of an accent almost, you might want to say. You're not going to want to say resh, you're going to want to say resh. Almost like rolling your tongue in Spanish or something, but not, if you get my meaning. It's resh. And of course, I learned resh, and it's actually, a lot of people say resh now. And do you remember I told you that for the letter, let me get the piece of paper so I can show you. Remember the letter dalet? How it's come here over and then back to the right. And I said that's very significant because another letter comes over and makes a little curve there and comes down. You need to learn to write it the correct way so you don't get confused. Well, here's where we do that. Instead of coming back, watch, the little, come over and curve it down a little bit skinny on the side. Now do you notice? Now do you see? You see that little trick there with the little curve there? If we were making the dalet or the D, we'd come past and come back. But with the resh or resh, you curve it right there and come straight down. And isn't it funny that in English the R goes to the right, but in Hebrew, where you actually write the letters from right to left, it actually goes just like you're forming in an opposite or backwards R. Isn't that interesting? I think it is. So you've got R-E-S-H, resh. Some people spell it R-E-I-S-H. And some people spell it just like it sounds, resh. It is the letter R. And you pretty much have a guttural sound when you say it. Resh. Now, I put that paper out of the way because I had a little note over here for the shin. And I was thinking about whether I should use the little saying they say with it, because your next letter is actually the SH or shin. It's very easy because it has branches with, like the lamed with that little yud at the top of it, you're going to go just like this. Make a little, bring it back down skinny and a little bit to the left. But the next branch, you're going to want to go just slightly more to the left so it ends up correctly. So bring it down and a little more. So you notice you're not trying to write parallel, you're bringing it down, and this one actually goes over a little more. So that when you make the third branch, you bring it down, bring it over fat, and look at how pretty that is. Because this branch actually is on the left leg, or some people bring it just to the bottom towards the left. But if you get what I'm saying to you, you don't want your shin to look like that. You know, spaced evenly. You don't want it to look like that. Now, this is shin, and the dot goes above it to the right. Now, S-H-I-N, shin, or the S-H sound. The reason this is important is because you write the letter the same way. Remember, just bring it over a little. This one bring over a little more. So do you see that offset at the bottom there? That way when you bring this one down and over fat at the bottom, you could really make it fat at the bottom if you want it to look better. The dot, if it's to the left, makes it sin and is the letter S. Now, if you learn it, most of the time you see the shin, it's going to be SH, and it's very rarely going to be the S. That's the way I didn't really have to learn any saying, but there is an old saying that they taught with this. Shin is to the right, or actually start with sin. Sin is wrong, so it always goes to the left. Matter of fact, one of my viewers that commented actually said this when they saw it. Reminded me of that saying. Shin is always to the right, or shin is right. Sin is always to the left, because as we all know, sin is wrong, isn't it? Keep in mind though, if you always keep in mind that the dot to the right is always shin, and it's going to be the majority of the time, you'll keep yourself straight. So we have kuf, resh, shin, and sin. Dot to the right is shin, dot to the left is sin. And the last letter that we're going to learn, the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, is Tav. Now Tav is formed like the Resh, with a curve and everything, and basically you're going to do this one over again. So bring it down, over, curve it, and bring it down. That is the basic formation of the first part of Tav. The second part is a little trickier, but not much because you've already done the motion. Bring it down with the skinny, fat, and skinny, and there you have it. Did you see how you come over, down, and over again? And Tav will generally have the dot in the middle. And Tav is obviously your T sound. You remember the other Hebrew letter, Tet? Well, this is just as exactly another T sound. Now, you do have another form without the dot, but it's not actually changing the form of the letter. It's the same letter, obviously, but it doesn't have a dot. And basically, I'm going to tell you, just always pronounce it T or Tav. T. It's your T. It doesn't change anything not having the dot in this one, but older, or I hope I spell this right, Orthodox Jews sometimes pronounce this with an S sound. I'm saying that it's okay to teach this as if you'll never have to worry about making it an S. Now, if I got that wrong, I apologize. Okay? That's just what I was taught. That's just what I know. And if it's wrong, all I'm telling you is I'm not going to worry about it, because every time I see the Tav, I'm going to pronounce it T, whether it's got a dot or not. It's going to be always T with me, and you can use that just as a general rule of thumb, okay? There we have it. We have just learned the entire Hebrew alphabet, or the Hebrew alphabet, starting from the beginning Aleph, Bet, Vet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Chet. Oh, let me move that up for you. Chet, Tet, Yud. We've got Kaf and Chaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samek, Ayin, Pe, Fe, Tzadi. Kuf, Resh, Shin, Sin, Tav. You take these papers, if you've done them with me here, and you take this and put it in your notebook any way that you like, as long as you just go from right to left and keep them in the proper order. I don't care what you write below the letter. Put whatever you need to learn it. And if you notice, I was able to put this. I might have to back it up a little bit. There. I was able to fit it on one page. And it took some work. And I actually had to tear a few pages out and start over. And if you have a problem, do it lightly in pencil or whatever. But you will come up with a way to do it perfectly and have your copy of the Hebrew alphabet or alphabet in one page in your notebook. But you know, if you want to do each letter and put all kinds of information, that's fine. Take 10 pages if that's what you want to do. This is your notebook. It's your book. You're teaching yourself Hebrew, and I'm trying to help you. And I hope that this has been a blessing and a help. And next we're going to go over vowels and stuff, and I hope to have some fun with some Hebrew slang too. So, but this had to be done, going over the entire Hebrew alphabet. Teaching myself Hebrew, the Hebrew alphabet. Hope you've enjoyed it. God bless you in Jesus' name. And I'll talk to you later, YouTube. Take it easy. Shalom, YouTube. Take a look at that board, would you? This is going to be Hebrew vowels. Be afraid. Be very afraid. I'm not kidding you. I would be afraid. If I was just starting to learn Hebrew and I was just starting to get into the vowels or the consonants and writing the letters and Aleph, Bet, Bet, Gimel, you know, and going through stuff and learning, and now I get this loaded on me, I'd be like, forget it. I don't even want to know. I don't even want to learn now. Or you might want to say, can't you give me an easier way? Well, I can, if you bear with me. Let's go through what they actually are and what they actually are called, and then go to the easy way. You can't pass up writing down the information. You need this. Put this in your notebook, right here. But then we're going to turn the page and we're going to put this easy, quick reference for you to always be able to go back and just say, oh, that's the S sound, or that's the Ah sound. So let's get started, okay? This is Hebrew vowels. There's the word Hebrew, Ivrit. Now, we'll get into why you say it that way and pronounce it that way, and just after we go over some of these vowels. Now look at, this is the Nikud, Nikudot for plural, but I don't even concern myself with that, because really I'm sort of like you might be. I want to do it the quickest and easiest way possible. So just know that we're going to learn vowels, which is pointing and dotting. Generally it goes beneath the letter, as in down here I give you examples with letters, and it's usually pronounced after the letter, such as ba. Okay? Now let's go on. Unless it's a silent letter like ivrit, the reason you say I first with nothing else is because the ayin there is silent, like the aleph. These are things that you will catch on to very quickly. But let's go over this difficult stuff. This is difficult because you might be thinking, I don't want to learn all that. Well, truthfully, neither did I. Let's go over it for your reference. This is the patach. This is the ah sound, like father. It's a little dash, and it's written below the letter, just like this is down here. I'm just going to refer down here to show you below the letter. And it's pronounced after the letter. Like I said, this is bet, the letter bet, and it's pronounced ba. We're going to get into this, but first we have to go over all the pointing and dotting so you know what they are. This is the ah sound. This is the shavah. it's silent, like at the end of this, underneath this letter. It's sort of like, think of it as, if you see this, it looks like a colon, and it might mark the end of a syllable. That would give you sort of an easier way to think of it, okay? Because the Shavah is silent, and therefore if it was under a letter, it gets nothing. But if it's next to the patak, it becomes the chataf patak, which actually means cutting it in half or reducing it so it doesn't get the emphasis. To put it very simply, the patak would be pronounced ah. The chataf patak, cutting it in half and reducing it, would be ah. Now let's put that together and see how it sounds. This is ah, this is ah. Do you get the difference? That's the beauty of it. It starts getting easy when you realize, well, you know what? It's ah. If I can get that, I can go on. Look, kamatz. Kamatz is formed the same way with the dash. Then you bring a little stem down and form what looks like to be a little T. Now this means ah, but older Jews or Orthodox Jews might pronounce this aw. I know I learned it as aw way back then. But now you can just pronounce it ah and be okay. That simplifies things too. And even as when you see the Shavah next to it, cut it in half, chataf kamatz. Some people even call that the Shavah patak or the Shavah kamatz. The thing is, when you see that little thing that looks like a colon next to one of these symbols, it's cutting it in half, therefore, same thing. Ah or ah. And you can see that's so close that if you just get the pronunciation right, the ah sound, you're going to be correct. That's how to make it easy and simplified. Let's face it, we're not trying to become scholars. We just want to be able to write and speak Hebrew. Now look, here's your segol. 2 dots, and then 1 dot below it forming a triangle. Pretty easy. That is your eh sound, segol. Eh, as in let. Now, you put the Shavah next to that, and it's the same thing as the patak and the kamatz. It cuts it in half, reduces it. So instead of saying eh, you'd say eh. Not much difference, and you're saying eh, as in let. Let's go to holam here. This is one of the more confusing ones because it's one of the few that instead of under the letter, it goes above the letter. And you would never want to confuse that with like shin or sin, because that's actually the dots that are in like bet and shin and peh and tav and stuff. That's the dagesh. That's for consonants. It's got nothing to do with vowel pointing. So don't get confused with that. This will generally be found maybe above an aleph or a vav, as I've got it here. That's above a vav, and it makes that the O sound, holam, O, as in home. Now, it's above the letter. Now we go back to below the letter again, and this is kubutz. Don't confuse that with kibbutz, which is actually the working community in Israel. That we won't get into that, okay? This is kubutz, which is the oo sound, as in moon. 3 dots written diagonally underneath the letter. Here's your 2 dots below the letter that makes the sound eh. Now, modern Hebrew might try to tell you, oh no, you need to pronounce that A. And not so, because if you go to Israel, they will pronounce this eh. But if it's followed by the yud with no vowel pointing, that makes it the A sound. That's when you're going to pronounce 2 dots A, is when it's followed by a yud. The same goes for when you get to, well, I didn't even say the word. That's your tsarei. It's spelled like this, but it's said or pronounced tsarei. Now, continue on. This is the chirik. 1 dot underneath the word, it gives it the I sound. Again, modern Hebrew would try to tell you, no, that's E. Automatically E. But if you're living in Israel, they're going to pronounce it with the yud following as E, only with the yud, which is called a chirik yud. Can we make it any more hard? Actually, it's not hard. If you just follow this rule, look at here, you got 2 dots, there you got 3 dots, that's the S sound. You got 2 dots with the S sound, but if you've got the yud behind it, it's A. You've got 1 dot with the I sound, as in sit, but when it's followed by a yud, it turns into the E, as in machine or T. Then to make things as difficult as possible, let's make this hard. We've got a dot that goes in the middle of the letter, such as coming over here and seeing the vav with the dot in the middle, not to be confused with the dagesh, that dot that you learn. Now see, that's why when you learn letters first, you wouldn't be confused at all. You'd say, oh, I understand. But if you're watching this video first without having done the consonants, you'd be like, well, what about this dot in the middle of this? Well, you need to go back and learn consonants, because that's bet and that's a dagesh. It has nothing to do with vowel pointing. But when you take this dot in the middle of a letter, mostly you'll see it with the vav. I'm not even sure if it might not only be only. But that is the oo sound. Now, I said I want to make this easy. Take this, put it in your notebook, write down Hebrew vowels and everything that you're seeing here, but don't put this part in there. You might even want to add this later when I show you what that is. This is the hard stuff that you might not want to take the time to learn. But you are going to have to see what these dots and pointing sound like for a quick reference. And when you group them together, you'll see there's not that much difference in a lot of them, and they group together easily. Like right here, you've got the dash and the little T. Oh, that's right, we're not learning patak anymore, are we? We're not going to learn kamat, so let's just learn what the symbols mean. When you see that dash or that T-looking symbol, that's ah. Of course, you already know what the Shabbat is, so it's silent, but I've already told you, it cuts in half, or takes the emphasis off when it's joined with the dash or the T. Basically, you could say, if it's not silent, it's all going to give you the ah sound. The only difference is, it might be ah, or with the Shabbat, it might be ah. And you don't even really have to keep yourself or hold to that. You could just say, oh, that's the ah sound to be correct. Now, do you see how you just took away all the madness up here and just said those five equal basically the same thing, unless it's silent? Here we got two dots, as in let. Three dots is and of course with the Shabbat, with the two dots or the thing that looks like a colon, it gives it a little bit half or reduces it, so it's And the bottom line is, again, you can say these are the sound. When you come here and you see the dot like above a vav, that's the O, as in English with that long line. Remember, here's the thing. When you're learning English in grade school, in first, second, third, fourth grade, whatever, you might see something like this to tell you and teach you that's the long vowel sound. If it was like a little half moon shape, you knew that was a short vowel sound. Think of that like it with Hebrew. That's what this is. This is what they use maybe to teach the grade school kids. But when they grow up and they've learned it and they've spoken it and that's their native language, just like we no longer write the little dash above the vowel, they don't either. That's what they're doing. They're taking all the vowel points out because they don't need them. Do you get how that kind of corresponds with what we're doing with English? And with Hebrew, it's like the same thing. Take these vowel points out because they know what it sounds like. Well, look, now that's what you're going to learn. This is O with the dot above. Dot in the middle makes that oo, and it also takes away the V sound. It's not voo, it's oo. But check it out. When it's written with three dots below a vet or a V, that would actually keep it because that's that's voo. I know it's confusing, and there's sometimes it's going to be different. It's sort of like English. I'm going to show you that in a minute. This is your I. One dot is I. A dot with a yud following it is E, as in machine. Now you already learned that up there, right? But look put it easily here in a page following on your notebook, and you're going to see this will be a quick reference card. When you see two dots, I already told you, following with a yud, that's A. So what have you just learned? Put this in your notebook, following this page, and look at that quick reference. Oh, these are ah. This is eh. Oh, but maybe if it's got the Shabbat, you cut it a little bit short. Okay, I'm getting that now. Oh, O, U, I, E, and A. And you say to yourself, I've just learned how to pronounce vowels. That's pretty cool. And as a rule, it's pretty much going to be, if it's written below the letter, it'll be following the letter with the sound. So you would say ba. Right there you're reading ba. But the thing is, sometimes you don't, and it's just, oh. I'm going to try to show you some of those things, but first we have to come across a general rule that's confusing and makes it seem difficult again. But it's really not. It's just one of those things you have to put up with. It's like in English when it says I before E, except after C. And oh yeah, we forgot to tell you, sometimes C will sound like can't or catch, but sometimes it'll be C as in receive. But if it spells believe, it's E before I. I mean, come on. Somebody that's from another country trying to learn English, they have a right to say, that's crazy. What are you doing? I can't get that. Well, that's how this rule is going to sound to you. If you look at this word right here, there's the resh, or the R. There's your vav with that dot in the middle, making it the oo sound because it's got a sharuk. And you've got the letter chet. Now, you would think this would be rucha, or rucha, but it's not. In this case, this word is ruach. I know it's confusing, isn't it? That's sort of that I before E rule. Don't shout me down for it. I didn't make the rule up. Ruach. That means spirit, and it also means wind. You just learned a Hebrew word. And to top it off and to end this, let's come up here. This is a very good word to learn from, to actually learn Hebrew from. The word is Hebrew. This is one dot for I, two dots is a shavah, just being silent. At the end, think of it as the end of a syllable, one syllable there. Your next syllable would be the R or the resh. Now you take this R, you would think that would be I, but it's not. Why is it not? Think for a minute, or look at the thing and you'll remember it's followed by that yud. When it's followed by that yud with no other vowel pointing, it gives it the E sound. That's when you pronounce it E. And you've got the tav at the end, which makes it the T, and therefore this is Hebrew, and the way you pronounce it is Ivrit. Pretty cool. So there you have it, YouTube. Hebrew vowels. I hope this has been a help. Take the hard stuff, write it down so you know what it is. And take the easy stuff for the next page and group it up and write it nice and neat so you can just refer to it quickly. Well, today, in teaching myself Hebrew, we're going to find out how to ask questions in Hebrew. Asking questions in Hebrew is really easy. So what does that say, YouTube? Zeh, meaning it. Now, this is going to be used with all of the words except one that we learn in Hebrew for asking questions. So what does this say? So if it says ma, what does it mean? That's what you have to know. It means what? And it, ma zeh. But you say it like a question, right? Just like you would in English. And the implied verb is. That sounds kind of stupid. Is. But it actually means what is it? Do you see that? Very simply put, you've got two words here. The verb is implied. So you've just learned how to say, what is it? Question mark. Maze? Maze? What is it? Now that you know the verb is implied and that ze means it, we can add all the words that ask questions right here, which is exactly what we're going to do now. So it's pronounced me, and it means who. Mise, mise means who is it. So ma means what, and me means who. You'll get it, don't worry about it. Let's go on to the next one. So this word is matai, which means when. Mataize, mataize. Now, it means when is it? But I'm sure you've noticed something. We never really went over anything about any vowel points or anything that sounded like the sound I. I don't know if that's because it rarely happens or whatever, but when you see this dash here with the yud, in this case it's I, making it matai. I'm not sure if that's the way it is every time you see this. That's why it's not included in the vowel points and stuff. It's not really in the rule book. But I know it's pronounced matai. So let's go on to the next one. So this is the word eich, which means how. So when you say eichze, eichze, you're asking, how is it? Now you notice you've got your two dots there, right? With the yud together makes the A sound. But then you've got the final chaf. The final chaf with the shavah is just the end of the word. That's, of course, why it's a final consonant, and it's pronounced eich. Now the next word starts with the consonant aleph, just like eich, but try to figure out how to say it before I tell you. Alright, boys and girls, how do you pronounce that? Same as the other word with the two dots and the yud, there's your A sound. It's got the fe, or the F sound, with a dot above it. What's that dot above it mean? And the silent H at the end? You should have it. Apho. Now remember, this isn't actually a correct spelling of Hebrew. It's just spelling it how it sounds. So the word is apho, which means where. Apho means where. Therefore, aphoze, where is it? Pretty cool, huh? The verbs are implied, and you're saying a sentence when you say these two words together, just like all the rest. So our next word is pronounced kama. Kama. And kama means how much. So when you say kamaze, kamaze, it means how much is it. Obviously, you can use that when you're shopping. Kamaze, how much is it? So let's go on now to the last word that we're going to learn in asking questions in Hebrew. Now for the last word, I've taken away the word ze, or it, because it just doesn't fit with this word. You'll see what I mean in a minute. And this word is lama. Can you figure that out? Why? Lama. Why? You see, that's like a one-word thing that we can even say in English. Why? So let's put that nice and neat in our notebook and see what we have so far. And for a quick review, how to ask questions. Verbs are implied in Hebrew. You've got ma, which means what. Mi means who. Matai means when. Ek means how. Eifo means where. Kama means how much. And to top it off, you've got the last word, which is lama or lama, which is how you ask why. Hope you've enjoyed it. Till next time, God bless you in Jesus' name. I'll talk to you later, YouTube. Well, I just added 3 more pages to my notebook. So, we're going to be doing greetings and salutations today. They're all nice words, useful words, easy words to learn, and some of them you might have even heard before, such as shalom. Shalom can be used for hello and goodbye, but it literally means deep peace. Now in Israel, they don't like to say goodbye because they feel it's too final. So the word is lehitraot. Lehitraot. That means see you soon, and we'll see each other again. Now, you might want to ask somebody, how are you doing? This is where you need to say it one way to a male and another way to a female. So, to the male you would say, Ma shlomcha. Now, to the female, it is Ma shlomech. Ma shlomech. You might want to answer, if somebody asked you, Beseder, okay. Or literally in order. That's what Beseder means. Beseder. Okay. Now here's 2 more answers for you. Tov ma'od. Tov ma'od, which means very good or exceedingly good. You could also answer lo tov, which is not very good. It means not good or no good. You see, tov ma'od, good is tov, and ma'od is very or exceedingly. So, tov ma'od. Lo means no, or in this case, no good or not good. So let's write that one now. Remember, when you don't have lines to write with, it makes it hard. I mean, your letters will be a little uneven and they'll be it's just harder with no lines, but that's what we're doing here. That's why it's easier when you put it in the notebook to use the lines to keep it uniform. Just thought this might help some people seeing the letters actually be formed as we go. So there we have it. Lo tov, no good, not good. Let's see what else we have here. Remember, this is greetings and salutations. So now you might want to ask somebody, how's everything? Or what's up? This would be ma nishma. Manishma. What's up? How's everything? Now here's a different one. What's new? Ma khadash. What's new? Now next in a conversation you might want to say, excuse me. That would be slicha. Slicha, excuse me. So say you're coming up to somebody and you want to ask them their name. To the male, you're going to say one thing, and to the female, you're going to say another. So you might say, Slicha, ma shimcha, or Slicha, ma shemek. To the male, ma shimcha. To the female, ma shemek. There's how you spell it. Now we get to the final two words on this page. Name is Shem. Shem. Name. So, name is Shem, but if you wanted to tell somebody what your name is, you would say Shmi and fill in the blank. If your name is Elizabeth, you would say Shmi Elizabeth. Anyway, we have one more page to do. Alright, so you've just asked somebody their name and they told you, and you want to say, pleased to meet you. You would say, Na'im Ma'od, which literally means pleasant exceedingly. Na'im Ma'od. Pleased to meet you. Then you might want to say thank you, which is Todah. Todah means thank you. Todah. Thank you. And of course your response would be, you're welcome. Or Bavakasha. Bavakasha, which has a double meaning of you're welcome and please. Bavakasha. You're welcome. That's pretty much it, YouTube. Let's take a look at what we've got here. So here's the notebook so far. The Hebrew alphabet, or alphabet. There's all your letters, including multiple forms. Here's your vowels, with your pointing and dotting. This is your Hebrew vowels quick reference page to make it a little easier. Here's some Hebrew words for how to ask questions. And here are the greetings and salutations pages that we just went over. I hope it helps you to see it in this way. Of course, you can pause it at any time and take a real good look at it. And finally, Todah, YouTube. Thanks for watching my vids. I hope this is a help and a blessing. God bless you in Jesus' name. I'll talk to you later, YouTube. Remember, Hebrew does have masculine and feminine forms of some words, such as you. You would say ata to the male, but if you're speaking to a female, you would say at. And of course, it's a really good thing to know whether something is good, which is tov, or bad, which is ra. And I want to show you the very first complete sentence that I ever learned in Hebrew. When I lived in Jerusalem way back in 1993, for a couple months, I'd start a conversation off with somebody and say shalom, and they'd say shalom back and just start rattling off in Hebrew. And I had to figure out some way to respond to them, to let them know, I don't really know Hebrew. So this is the first sentence I ever learned. Ani medaber rak katzat ivrit, which means, I speak only a little Hebrew. Then we'd have to finish the conversation off in English, or it was literally over. Now remember, these are just examples of what you might consider putting in your notebook. But you're going to put whatever trips your trigger, you know what I mean? Whatever you really want to put in your notebook. It should be all words that you might actually use, not cluttered with a bunch of junk. So don't ask me why, but I just thought to myself I'd like to have Hebrew colors, which is tseva'im. Well, I'm not much of an artist, as you can tell if you looked at any of my drawing videos, but I drew a real basic painter's board and just put some colors with ink around so I could get all the colors I want to put down. First we start off with brown, which is chum, which is the color of the painter's board. Then we've got levan, which is white. It also means moon. You know, the moon in the sky? White, levan. Then we've got gray, which is afor, and black, which is shachor, purple, which is sagol, blue, kachol, green, yarok, red, adom, orange, katom, yellow, tsahov, and pink, varod. I'm not really sure when I might use a bunch of Hebrew words for colors, but I kind of like putting it in my notebook, if you know what I mean. It's just a personal experience. So that's it, YouTube. I really hope that you might consider making your own personal notebook. It's really going to help you out. That way when you go to all those channels that have their Hebrew learning tutorials and stuff like that, you'll be able to cut right to the good stuff when you open your notebook up. Yevarechecha Adonai vayishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha vichuneka. Yisa Adonai panav elecha. Vayasem lecha shalom. The Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee, and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee, and give thee peace. In Jesus' name, amen.